The one we're going to talk about today, among many of the corporate BS topics, is incentives. Can you imagine having a company full of employees where that is their main incentive, is just hitting the finish line of retirement because they don't like where they are?
Encouraging people to speak up and then not firing them for doing so or not labeling them as troublemakers would be a good start.
A lot of companies will do employee surveys. They'll ask people for feedback. Of course, your feedback is anonymous, but everyone knows it's not.
You're not going to tell the management the truth. Why would I not tell them the truth? And they're like, because you're a consultant. They're paying you. You want to keep getting paid.
People are probably going to do things wrong so that they get some attention.
I was told I should have got my training before I came to work because I was there to perform. And so if I wanted any upskilling, it was kind of my fault for not getting it before I applied for the job.
Don't grow, do not grow, and do not learn on the job. Andrew, I am so excited that today we get to talk about one of our favorite topics that we actually talk about all the time outside of the podcast, and that is corporate BS.
Woo woo.
I'm assuming people know what we mean when we say BS. We're sort of committed to no profanity on our podcast, but we're going to talk about corporate BS. And the one we're going to talk about today, among many of the corporate BS topics, is incentives. So we'll probably have a wide-ranging conversation about this topic, but it's largely going to be looking at the ridiculousness of a lot of corporate incentive policies and practices. Where does that take your thinking?
Well, I was just thinking how common this conversation is. I know that anytime you and I are hanging out, or even in between meetings or travel and stuff, like somewhere there is always a conversation about corporate BS, the ridiculousness of the incentive culture in organizations. So yeah, I'm excited to see the places we go today.
So one of them that I think really stands out because it's been talked about, it's been in the news, has to do with a lot of companies will do employee surveys. They'll ask people for feedback. And, of course your feedback is anonymous, but everyone knows it's not. So that's the first thing is in many of these cases, when you submit your anonymous feedback, you have to put in your email address. You have to identify yourself. I mean, they have to know that you're an employee. So you need to verify your identity. And then they're like, oh, we're just going to anonymize all this. We're not going to actually identify you. And then something happens later on that lets you know that your feedback was not anonymous. So I'm thinking about a case last year where a company in India found out that, through the survey, they found out that a bunch of employees were experiencing significant levels of stress. Now, if you find this out, you have a lot of employees experiencing stress, you might want to do something to alleviate that stress. You might ask them further questions about what's going on. How can we help? But in this case, the company was like, we're going to do you all a favor. If you said you were stressed out, we're just going to let you go because we don't want to contribute to that problem for you.
I remember that article. And do you know what? Like you, I'm sure, I read things every day. I listen to things every day. When I first saw that article, I genuinely thought it was a joke. I genuinely thought it was a spoof to get to people, that there was no way this could be true, that a company would do a survey, find out that they're hurting their people. And so the solution to that was to fire the people who said that they were hurting. Extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary.
Do you want to hear the letter that they sent to their team?
Yes, because I remember reading this and I don't remember it now. So let's put it into this. Let's put it in. What was it?
Okay. Dear team, recently we conducted a survey to understand your feelings about stress at work. Oh, so they were actually asking about stress. So it wasn't like they were surprised that stress came up. Many of you shared your concerns, which we deeply value and respect.
Deeply.
As a company, deeply.
Very, very
As a company committed to fostering a healthy and supportive work environment, we've carefully considered the feedback. To ensure that no one remains stressed at work, we have made the difficult decision to part ways with employees who indicated significant stress. This decision is effective immediately, and impacted employees will receive further details separately. Thank you for your contributions. Best regards. Yes, madam. Yes, madam is the name of this company, which kind of focuses on wellness. So yeah, they decided, they knew who gave them the feedback about significant levels of stress. You could imagine there's maybe a 5-point scale, and these were people that indicated 4 or higher. And we're doing you a solid by letting you go.
I'm having so many opinions about the fact that you just mentioned it's a wellness company, because I'd also forgotten that.
It's beauty, I think, but providers for in-home beauty services.
Well,
So that's what they do.
Where I went to was just positivity only, please. Just think positive thoughts. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's scary. I think it's fun to talk about this and poke holes in it, and I think it's an extreme example of corporate BS. I'm sure there are, not that many. Well, I say I'm sure. I would hope that this is not, the most common way for companies to be handling stress, but it does kind of point to the ridiculousness of even wanting to explore these kinds of situations. Why are we asking the question? Why are we even asking the question? We're just actually looking at who can we single out, right?
Well, and so if we think about it through the lens of incentives, what incentive are you providing for people to give honest feedback? And if people, by the way, people beyond this company are going to read this story and think, oh, next time my employer asks for honest feedback, I'm not going to give it to them.
Definitely right.
So I think it opens up, and we could have a whole feedback episode, but it opens up a whole bunch about feedback. Like, do you really want it? And what do you do with it? And even like the whole idea of an anonymous survey kind of indicates that you don't believe that people will tell you the truth unless you give them the cover of anonymity. Like, why else? Can you imagine a culture where people are very comfortable giving and receiving feedback? They probably wouldn't need an anonymous survey.
That's very true. This is making me think back to, it was one of my earlier consulting gigs. I was working with a bank. They had some catastrophic feedback in a survey, and it sort of made sense. They were going through a change, not in personnel, but like a merger or an onboarding of a new system or something. I don't remember the exact context, but it was the kind of thing where half of the team were basically grabbing sleeping bags at the end of the day, getting a few hours sleep on the floor under their desks, and then getting up the next morning. It was a crazy time, but it felt like they were all doing it for the sake of something. It went on a bit too long, and one of the things that came out of the survey was basically, you asked too much of us, you pushed us too hard, people are at breaking point, and we've had enough. You're not listening to us, you're not respecting us. That was the sort of the gist of the results. And to their credit, the management team was worried about it. And I came in with a group that I was working with at the time, and they asked us to interview people. They asked us to do some sort of like listening tours where we'd get 30, 40, 50 people in a room. We'd ask them questions about it. And I've never felt so disliked in my life. It was like, I think I was the first person to actually ask the question and listen to them. They'd only ever done these things through surveys. And so their management culture at the time didn't at all allow for people to talk to their leaders when they were struggling. And I heard some mind-blowing examples in those meetings, one of which was someone was in tears and was told, it was even worse, it was a lady who was in tears, and her manager told her to basically get herself together because she was making other people uncomfortable or something. It was just horrible.
Oh yes, you can't be having those lady feelings.
Don't be having lady feelings in front of the other men. The men are uncomfortable. But no, it was it was awful because what I realized was I was basically the lightning rod. I was the first person who'd ever said, tell me what the problem is. And I was listening. And so on the one hand, it was the first time it was sort of being vented. But on the other hand, it was also like I was kind of getting blamed because I was the only person who was listening or even close to listening. So it was awkward. But the main thing that came out of this at the end was people were going, you're not going to tell the management the truth. My task was to write a report. And I was like, why would I not tell them the truth? And they're like, because you're a consultant. They're paying you. You want to keep getting paid. You're not going to tell them the truth. It's really interesting. It's like, okay.
Well, yeah, because they know that the management team doesn't want to hear the truth. Otherwise, they would feel free to tell them. So if the management team doesn't want to hear the truth, why would they pay you to tell them the truth? Why wouldn't they pay you to tell them the untruth?
Mm-hmm.
And so there is, right? Like that's I think the incentive here. They don't trust you because they know the management team doesn't want to hear what's actually going on. They want to hear that they're doing great.
I think
and
also,
so that's what the employees believe, that that's your job, is to tell the management team they're doing everything right, they're doing great, pat them on the head, and then you get more money for ensuring them that they're correct.
Yeah, I think the irony is they were pointing to the incentives that I have from the management team. I have an incentive to extend this, to keep it running, to keep them on my side, right? So me telling them the truth is not going to go well for me. So in a way,
right,
the incentive loop just kind of skipped a beat in a way. But anyway,
yes. Well, these managers can't, these leaders in this company can't handle the truth. And if you're smart, you know that, so you will not be honest with them. As the consultant, you won't be honest with them. So of course you're not trusted.
I think we should do a podcast on just don't tell the truth.
One of the things that I think is huge when it comes to incentives is a lot of the default mindset and behavior that companies have around promotions and bonuses. So if you think about how people are onboarded into most companies, how people are even onboarded into the business world itself, there's a kind of basic set of assumptions that if you spend enough time in your company and you perform well, you will get promoted. And each year, if you're performing at strong levels, you will also get bonuses. So promotions and bonuses that is what most managers believe they have in their toolkit for motivating people. Now, we know, because we have a lot of clients who are all over the map in terms of how these incentives actually work, we know that this doesn't work. We know that this whole system is a mess. So I know you have a story about somebody that we know who's recently been through something around, I think, was it bonuses?
It was bonuses, correct. And so, the story was, and I don't think this will be a surprise to a lot of people listening to this, but the story was senior leader, 60 or 70 people on his team. He's been given his, and I'm using quotation marks in case you're not watching a video, his annual allocation for bonuses. And he was just like immensely frustrated because he'd also been given a quota. And the quota was very simple. It's A, B, or C. A is, high performer, B is, satisfactory, and C is underperforming. And I don't remember the split, but basically, X number of people had to get a C. And he was so frustrated about this. And he said, this is not a bonus exercise. This is a budget allocation exercise. Mm-hmm. A letter equals a certain amount of money. I'm required to give everybody something, but I have to give the C's less than last year, or there's some funny formula. But there was no way around the fact that some people have to be underperformers, even if they're not underperforming. Mm-hmm. And so he called it a budget allocation exercise. He said, and he was talking about the absolute BS of this because it's just not honest. And so he was lamenting, right? Yeah. I mean, I know you know this too, right?
Yeah. And we have numerous clients because we work with a lot of organizational leaders, executives, and managers. We have numerous clients that are in this situation now. So this is one of those things out of many things that are now normal inside of large companies. They didn't used to be normal, but now they're normal. That when an employee comes for an annual review, you get one of three scores, A, B, or C, right? You can call it A, B, or C, 1, 2, or 3. And the top letter A means that you're exceeding expectations and you get a bonus.
Woo-woo.
Now, this other company I know of, you're meeting expectations. That's like your B grade, meeting expectations, and you're just performing okay, so you don't get a bonus. And then a C would be underperforming. So we're going to put you on a performance plan or something like that. Now, the problem is that many of these companies, they have an allocated budget for bonuses. So they can't give bonuses to everybody who deserves them. They give each manager a set number. You can give 2 bonuses this year, which means you can only give 2 A's this year, which means a lot of people who deserve an A are going to get a B. They're going to go to their annual performance review, and no matter what they've done, if they've performed, like if they've worked miracles and made the company millions, billions of dollars, it doesn't matter. You're going to get a B. You're going to be told you're meeting expectations. You're going to be told you're not exceeding expectations because we don't have enough money allocated to give you a bonus. Sorry, your performance review is not actually reflecting your performance. Sorry, I'm not allowed to.
And
yeah.
Now what happens is you get to go into the traffic jam of people who got looked over the previous years and hope that you get rewarded maybe next year, maybe the year after. And so we end up creating this insane dependency on bonuses and fostering this sense of like, it's a bit of a street fight to keep your head above water and stay ahead of your colleagues. So you have competition instead of collaboration, because now everyone's in this traffic jam trying to get through this funnel to get back to the top of the pile next year and hopefully get that bonus or promotion that they were probably due a year or two before. Fantastic structure. Love it.
Well,
corporate.
Imagine you and I are coworkers. We're working for the same team. We're at the same level in this
Chuck, I'm just going to jump in. You and I are coworkers. Can I just, we are coworkers.
That's true. We do work together.
Okay. Sorry.
Imagine that we're both team members on a team inside of one of these companies, which fortunately we're not currently, but imagine we're team members inside one of these companies. And in last December, I had my performance review and I was the one that got the A and you're the one that got the B, but you know that you performed at least as well as I did.
Yeah.
Right. You know that this was not fair. Now, during the course of this next year, you're hoping that the tables are turned. Maybe next year, end of this year, I get a B and you get the A. That would be fair, right? During the course of this year, if you have the opportunity to make me look bad, why wouldn't you take it?
Taking it. Totally. Right. I mean,
that's why I trust you.
Yes, yeah. Totally. Joking aside, right? This is kind of what happens.
Yeah.
So we're not exactly helping teamwork. We're not exactly helping culture. Yeah, we're just messing with people.
Oh, I have a really naughty question here, which is, why would performance reviews be tied inextricably with bonuses? Why are those two things so heavily linked that they have to go together? In other words, why can't you get an awesome performance review whether you get a bonus or not? I don't understand that.
Well, it's interesting because it's making me think about a company that I was talking to recently, and in a way, they've sort of set it up like that, but it's a bit dark because you can have an extraordinary performance review, and a few months later, you'll be told what bonus you're getting, if any. And so they are doing them separately, but they're still kind of related, but they've put a big enough gap in between. But essentially, so what I was hearing from the leader there was she was saying, like, and she showed me the notes that she got from her leader about what a great performer she was. Interestingly, small detail, but interestingly, the leader spelt her name wrong about 5 out of 7 or 8 times, which I thought was fascinating. It's a four
Wow.
letter. It's a 4-letter name. Got the name wrong more times than they got it right, which just felt lazy to me. But anyway, she's saying I got a really good review, and I was like, "Oh, great! So that means you're going to get a good bonus." And she laughed and she said, "It doesn't mean anything at all. I might get no bonus." It's and it was
Yeah.
similar to the budget allocation. Like, so
Right.
so there are some people doing it, I suppose, to try to distance themselves from that idea that they're tired. But everybody knows they're still tired. And I think it comes back to, could we just be honest about this?
Right. Yeah. Well, and I like that structure better because at least it pulls apart the two experiences. But I think about back to one of our recent conversations about this very topic, and you were saying, why does the company tell the manager how to allocate the bonus money? Why not just say, here's our budget for bonuses. You have 15 team members. You figure out how you want to distribute the bonus money. Let
Yes.
the manager do that. Like, if everybody overperformed, then they can split the bonus. Like, why not?
I know.
Why
I
not?
think
If
I
you
think
might have a high performing team.
imagine if you went to the 15 people and said, we have whatever, $100,000. There's 15 of you. Figure it out.
Yeah. I would even give it to the employees.
I mean, I think
let them fight it out.
in the spirit of transparency and honesty, right? Because I think the other bit in here, my hunch is the bit that gets people irritated the most is the requirement to nominate underperformers in order to validate the fact that you're giving money to others. Why does somebody have to be an underperformer? Of course, if someone's underperforming, then let them know, give them feedback, take them aside, give them a performance plan, whatever's needed. But being required to downgrade people in order to validate who gets what, that just seems insane.
Yeah.
So,
you know what it reminds me of? Yeah. I still remember years ago, we were doing a training for a large company. They had, this was maybe 10 plus years ago. So they had gotten, their management team had gotten very excited about Jack Welch and his management approach. He'd put it in his big book. And the idea was, they called it forced ranking. So the idea was, in any company, doesn't matter what company, in any company, you have 20% of your employees are high performers. They're doing amazing. 70% are doing okay, and they could do better. 10%, they'll never get anywhere. They're toxic to the company, and you should just get rid of them.
Chop, chop, chop.
So, right? And the idea, right, exactly. And so they actually were like, okay, we're doing this. And they actually gave the formula to all their managers and said, your top 20% bonuses, raises, your middle 70%, put them all on, basic improvement, education, training, all this kind of stuff, like upskill them. And your bottom 10%, we expect you to fire. So they went through this reorg where they actually did this. All the managers complied. Everybody did it. And it actually turned out great because letting go of that dead weight actually really made a difference. It helped the company. I remember a manager coming to me and saying, we did this. It worked. I loved the result. I was really happy to have my newly formed team really be the people I wanted. But then a few months later, the company's like, that was great. We're doing it again. And once again, you need to lay off 10% of your team. You're just going to get rid of them. And this person is crying to me and saying, everybody on my team is amazing. We got rid of the bad ones. Everybody on my team is amazing. I don't know who to fire. I have no idea. One of them has to go. I don't know who it is. I'm going to feel terrible. So that's the problem with this, is it works in principle. Maybe it works once, but if you keep doing it, doesn't work.
Well,
by the way, the same company. Yes, go ahead. I give you another example from the same company.
You named it. It's a once off.
Yeah.
definitely could be considered a smart move, but it's a mathematically extraordinarily dumb move if you're going to try to keep
Yes.
repeating it. And
Yeah.
you can't, right? It's like a multi-level marketing. If I have to go out and recruit 5 people and my 5 people have to go and recruit 5 people, I think it's something. I think you can only get about 13 levels in before you've exceeded the population of Earth or something like that. Like these are mathematically dumb concepts. Do it once, sure. Do it twice, you're asking for trouble. You're going to trash culture. You're going to trash teamwork. You're going to crush people's spirit. Good job. You had another example.
I do, but yes, and I also want to talk about your multi-level marketing model because I actually think that that's relevant to our conversation too. So the other example I'll give you from this same company is they wanted to do a big sales push at the end of one of their years. They're like, our sales are down. We're going to push. We're going to double our sales. Something ridiculous like that. They set a ridiculous high bar goal. And they pushed all their employees to really go there, really give it their all, put in everything, hit those targets. And people really showed up. They really did give it their all. They really did, they did everything they could. The company did hit those targets. It was actually amazing. Everybody was like, wow, look what we did. That's amazing. Oh my gosh, I'm exhausted. But that was really satisfying. And so, of course, people are taking time off to recover. They're going to see their doctor after not doing it for months. There was recovery from that because it was so intense. And a few months later, the company's like, we're doing it again. And then a few months later, we're doing it again. And pretty much from that point on, the company's in this state of constant overdrive because they already did it. And their shareholders were expecting that. Keep overdriving, and people were burned out. They were exhausted. They were done.
Well, it's not at all innovative. Anyway. Yeah, this is incentive programs based on existing processes, which make no sense. And again, it's this idea of because something worked once, we should just keep doing it. Mm-hmm. The last company I worked for as an employee had a very similar thing. We had an extraordinary year, but we also had a cost income ratio of about 98%. Mm-hmm. So in other words, for 98% of the effort was getting us 2% of the reward, but it was a high volume business with very serious numbers, talking in the billions. So 2% was good, but broken by the end of the year to achieve that 2%. And I remember just getting into the office after the new year or whenever it was, the new financial year, being told, "Great, let's go for 3 this year," and it's like you could just feel everybody's breath leaving their body and their souls crushing. It's just not sustainable. So
no, well, and I think about some of the sales teams we've worked with, where they talk about this openly, like these targets we have for this quarter, we're never going to hit them because they're ridiculous.
Well, it makes me
and so we're just playing this game now.
Our favorite question when we get into these groups, right? Yeah. And we say what's your dream? And we're asking them about their dream for their business. What do they always answer, Chuck?
Vacation, holiday,
retirement.
Right?
Exactly. I'm just trying to stay alive. Vacation. I'm trying to stay alive until retirement.
Yeah, I know. My dream is to put all this behind me in some way, to be free of whatever this is, the corporate BS. That's their dream. Can you imagine having a company full of employees where that is their main incentive, is just hitting the finish line of retirement because they don't like where they are? There are a lot of companies like this.
I worry about people's odds. I think I don't know. I don't know how many people make it over the finish line still breathing. But you had a thought on the MLM. Yeah.
MLM, multi-level marketing. Well, the reason I got excited about this as an example is because the other way that multi-level marketing is talked about is it's a pyramid scheme. And I think that a lot of large corporations are pyramid schemes of a different kind. So the idea that most people are incentivized by is promotions. You will, if you do well, you will get promoted. You will get more authority. You'll supervise people. Maybe you'll supervise more people as you go up the chain. That is the typical pathway that people are shown. And even to the point where if you are at a company for a significant amount of time and you're not promoted up the chain, there's something wrong. But the problem with this is it is a pyramid. You don't have space for everybody at the next level. So again, even if you have high performers, they're just going to wait because there aren't enough slots for them. Unless you're a top heavy company, which is also kind of stupid. So this is not a viable way to incentivize people. And people will, because it is all a lot of managers have is the sort of the carrot of promotion. People managers will wave this in front of people. I don't think it's fair.
Yeah. Well, I know this is an example I've used a lot in a lot of our training rooms, which is that people will push back on things like this because their only leverage is their money or their promotions, right? Mm-hmm. So it's the only thing I can use to push back against my organization. I want more money, I want a promotion, or else I'm leaving. I'm taking my knowledge with me. We're missing opportunities to make people feel seen, to make them feel heard, to make them feel like they belong, that they're part of something, right? Like harnessing a culture that feels supportive, encouraging. There are so many other ways to sort of try to meet some of those needs. Not everybody wants to be a senior leader, but people do generally want to be seen, heard, appreciated. And
right.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunities there. Encouraging people to speak up and then not firing them for doing so or not labeling them as troublemakers would be a good start.
That's a good start. Well, the other one that you're also pointing to, and it's something that I've heard people talk about more and more, it's actually a lifelong career path for individual contributors. Mm. So this is something a lot of companies, they don't even know how to talk about. But because there's such an entrenched model of if you're good at the thing, you get to be in charge of more people who are good at the thing. And then you get to move up and be in charge of the people who are in charge of the people who are good at the thing. Again, those people, they may not actually be that interested in leadership and they might suck at it, but that is career advancement. So they kind of have to do it. If they're, why would you turn down a chance to be promoted? But there are companies that are experimenting with this where they're actually promoting people as individual contributors, not putting them in charge of others, letting them excel, letting them take on maybe mentorship roles, letting them actually advance their skills to the next level. So there is a career path for people who never want to be managers, supervisors, or organizational leaders. And I think that's really smart because it isn't for everybody.
Yeah, I agree. And I think what they're doing well is they're also giving people feedback along the way. And I think that's the other thing that's often missing in these kind of organizations. If I'm getting a once a year conversation with my leader, who is then deciding what kind of bonus I'm getting or not getting, I'm flying in the dark most of the time. There should never be any surprises when it comes to feedback. Right? When I'm having a feedback conversation with my manager, like this should be a normal part of our not a daily thing necessarily, but at least a regular occurrence. If there are opportunities for me to grow or to do things differently, I should be getting that information on a regular basis so that when it comes to my annual review, there are no surprises. Unfortunately, a lot of people are sitting there waiting for that annual conversation in trepidation.
Early on in the work I was doing with executive coaching, I worked with a CEO. I learned a lot from this guy because he was terrible. And so I just looked from watching how he operated, listening to some of the things he said, I'd walk out of his office and I'd be like, oh my God. So just as an example, I'd met with some of his senior leadership team and they all said the same thing, which is he doesn't talk to us about how we're doing. We have no idea what he thinks about our performance. Mm-hmm. And we just need basic feedback. And so, of course, I go to him with this feedback and he's like, we do performance reviews once a year. I don't know what they're talking about. Stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Or the other one I would say is your people are expecting recognition for the work they're doing. They want to know that they're not even getting any praise. They're not getting any positive. Nobody knows if they're doing well. They don't know it. They only hear about when something goes wrong. And he's like, well, I'm not going to spend time praising people for just doing their jobs. Why would I do that? I'm going to praise when people go above and beyond. But if somebody's just performing, I'm not going to praise them. They're getting nothing. And of course, they do something wrong, they're going to get something. So, I think basic human psychology, people are probably going to do things wrong so that they get some attention.
My brain hurts
right?
just even thinking about this. You're right. Like, negative attention is better than no attention. This is definitely a well-known thing. So, yeah, if the analogy here is really simple. If you have a child that isn't getting attention from the adults in the room, what does it do? Misbehaves.
Yeah.
Now it's getting attention. Its needs are getting met in a negative way. Yeah, it's true. And adults are doing the same. My brain hurts even just hearing you say that out loud. It's not at all a revelation to me. I know it, but even just to realize that there are people who genuinely think that leading people is just that. They have a job to do. I was told this by a boss many years ago in a bank that I worked in. I was told something along those lines of, I asked for some training to help me. I was a very, very, very young team leader, had no idea what I was doing. And I was told I should have got my training before I came to work because I was there to perform. And so if I wanted any upskilling, it was kind of my fault for not getting it before I applied for the job. Like, okay. Like, it was just so weird.
Don't you dare. Yeah. Don't grow. Do not grow. Well, and do not learn on the job ever.
I mean,
ever.
It's a long time ago now. But yeah, I had been hired into a role. 6 months later, I got promoted to team leader. And I said, I need some support. And they told me it was my fault for not thinking of that before I took the job, even though they offered me the promotion internally. But I think it was that kind of mindset is, why would we encourage you? Our job is to hit you with a stick when you don't perform. Then you'll be encouraged.
Right? It's like, as a manager, how would you lead if all you have is carrots and sticks? Like, that's all you have. So in other words, all you have is, you have a way to punish people if they do something wrong. And then you also have a way to reward people if they do something amazing. And that's all you have.
I think we could do a skit on this. I could totally imagine, sitting in my office promoting people. And when they come in, I'm like, congratulations on your promotion. Here's a stick that you can take back to your desk. Hit people with it when you want to get more out of them, okay? And here's a bag of carrots, but you can only take it out once a year. Whack, whack, munch, munch.
And do not give carrots to everybody. Only some people get to eat. Only maybe one or two people get to eat, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But could you imagine the mindset of a manager? Like, it's still, like you were saying, it makes your brain hurt. Imagine the mindset of a manager who will not ever go out of their way to make anyone feel good about existing. You're not even there unless you do something amazing or something wrong. You don't, you're dead to me unless you blow me away or make me angry.
I have a serious question.
That's amazing.
I have a serious question for you. What is the danger? Because there must be a major danger here that we're not aware of. So I want to see if you can figure this out. What is the danger of me being nice to you as a manager? Like, why wouldn't I? Because it must be dangerous. Otherwise, I would be doing it, right? What is the risk?
That's a great question.
Right?
So one risk is I might interpret it as praise, and I might not excel beyond the level I'm at. I might just stay at the level I'm at because you've now given me reinforcement for this level of performance, not for a higher level of performance. So that would be one risk. The other one I could see is you might be afraid that I'll take advantage of you in some way. If you extend some kindness to me, that you'll show yourself as being soft, and I might be able to manipulate you if you open your heart to me. So those are the two I can think of.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking of a derivative of that last one, which is If I show you, or if I acknowledge you for doing something well, you may no longer fear me.
Ah, that's true.
And if you
The
don't,
fear might drop.
the fear
Yeah.
might drop. And so then it's like my stick just got shorter or softer. It became a feather.
Mm,
And so now I can't motivate you with
mm,
fear. Hmm.
yeah. You might accidentally create psychological safety for me, which
We
might
can't, no, psychological
have me.
safety, bad.
No,
Don't have
bad, so
psychological
bad.
safety, otherwise people won't
Do
perform.
not.
Whack, whack.
We need that. We need that stick. Oh my
Sticks for
gosh.
all
Like
leaders. Okay.
it's like it makes me think of like it's so rudimentary, like, how people used to, I don't even know, maybe people still treat horses this way. I don't even know. Like but like, no, you got to whip that horse. That's the only way to get that horse to do anything for you. You got to hurt it. Yeah, amazing, right?
Well, yeah.
So anyway, we are looking in the dark directions here today with our corporate BS episode. I think we'll have more of these corporate BS episodes. But
Yes.
what's a way to get incentives right? Oh, did I
Find
lose
that.
you? Is our connection dropping? Is it? Are we still on?
Yeah, like all my circuits just fritzed. I don't know. Are we supposed to do that? Okay. I think for me, one of the obvious things is just find out what motivates people. Listen to them. Right? Like, what do they care about?
Hmm.
What what drives them? Do they want to be a leader? Do they not want to be a leader? Do they want to grow? Do they not want to, like, what motivates people? What brings them to work? What is their dream or their vision, um, for themselves, for their place in this company? But
Hmm.
I don't think getting it right is hard. I think if everybody, imagine everybody turned up the dial one notch on listening more and being curious more. I think that would have a huge wave effect all by itself. So
Hmm.
those are the first things that come to mind. What would you say?
Well, first of all, I one of the things you said really really struck me, which is the importance of taking an individual approach. People are motivated in very different ways, so it's not one size fits all. You do need to know people, and getting to know people will let you know where to go for motivating.
Mm,
I think a couple of things really show up for me if I think about the basics of human fulfillment. One is just the fact that we're just such social creatures that really are, for most people, our deepest desire is to belong. And so if you can turn up the dial on legitimate experiences of belonging, you will have people.
mm,
So that's one. I think the other one that is vastly over leveraged by most companies and most leaders is people do value their own growth. So people want to grow and learn. They want to have an experience of, of self betterment in some way. And I think that we can give them those experiences in a lot of different ways. I think too often that gets collapsed with money, and that's not what I'm talking about. So I think giving people experiences of growth, letting them be on a pathway that allows them to grow, getting support for that growth, getting affirmation for that growth, recognition for it, that is powerful. If I spend 5 years at this company or more, and I come out of those 5 years more skilled, more competent, more confident than I started, I will feel like that was time well spent, regardless of bonuses and stuff.
mm.
So I think that is definitely a motivator that is under leveraged. And I think most managers don't know how to do it, which is why it's under leveraged.
Yeah, such a good point. I think there's something else you said which is probably worth underlining, and I hesitate a little because it's a bit of an overused term, but I think it's important. It's just to be real, be authentic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Be
Yeah.
yourself. Most of us are really good at being ourselves outside of the workplace. We might as well bring a bit of it into the workplace. And if that means cracking a joke at your own expense or revealing something about yourself or a moment of vulnerability, but also like just looking for things that are right instead of looking for things that are wrong. You know, what you and I would call the skill of acknowledgement from a coach training perspective, but really just like letting people know what you appreciate about them sincerely, instead of
Mm-hmm.
doing what I call the airport bookstore leadership manual speak, right? A thing I
Ugh.
learned in a book. You are important to us. We appreciate you very much in this company, you know, said by a robot, you know, with human skin.
Yeah.
Like,
Thank you for your service. Yeah, I
yeah, yeah,
know.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
yeah,
Well, like the beginning of that
yeah,
email that you read out earlier on from the company that was firing everybody. I think just being a little bit yourself. I
yeah.
was talking about this with a leader that I've been mentoring recently, who was saying, when I acknowledge people, they just look really uncomfortable.
Mm.
Like, do you have a sense of why that is? Like, what am I doing wrong? And I said, well, I think being acknowledged and appreciated can be a little uncomfortable, but when it's done elegantly, it's also like it lands well. My hunch, and she validated this, was she'd sort of incorporated it as part of the structure of a conversation
Mm-hmm.
with someone. And it would really start with, I want to acknowledge you for. And, you know, it's
Mm.
super well intended. And she was doing a great job of finding things to acknowledge, but the format didn't really feel authentic, even though what
Yes.
she was saying was genuine. And so I think it's great to just catch yourself on those moments and go, as you've heard me say 100 times in a training room, if you don't talk like this to your, you know, your mother, your brother, your loved ones, whatever, don't talk like this to your employees. Like,
Mm.
talk like you.
But also, yeah, I think I'm really appreciating this too. And I think some of it is there's a bit of a time and place part also.
Mm.
If if you're trying to squeeze it into your annual review meeting,
Ew. Ew.
cringe, right? Yeah. So I'm thinking of examples like on our team, and this is something that we just do regularly, frequently with each other. It's just natural for us. But like, so I'll see an email that you sent to a client, and I'll just message you like, "Oh my God, that email was just brilliantly written." And I didn't have to say it. And I wasn't practicing the skill of acknowledgement. I was just saying, like, I'm really impressed with something I saw you do, and I want you to know that. And I'm doing it in the moment. I'm not waiting for our next official meeting. I'm just sending you the text. So that kind of thing.
Mm.
I think we all could do more of that.
And I just want to say, for any doubters out there, it doesn't make me any less scared of Chuck.
I still have ways to make you pay if you need to.
Yeah, no, it's good. I think so. Yeah, so I think I just wanted to sort of underline that was part of what you were saying before. I think just being authentic and real, um,
Yeah.
and it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be perfect. Who wants rigidity in human interactions, right? Humanizing the workplace. Be yourself. Be
Mm,
yourself. So yeah. So
yeah.
some places to go when it comes to
Well, if you're a nice
this.
person, if you're not a nice person, then don't be yourself. Like, really, if you're just like mean all the time as yourself, don't be that,
No,
So I think if you're a creep, I think you should put on a facade when you
try
show up at
that.
work, for
Try
sure.
harder. Try harder.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, definitely.
Sarcasm aside, I do appreciate that you and I live in a world where we actually think people are inherently good, and
Yes,
most
it's
of
true.
this stuff that we talk about here, it's good people doing things that just don't work as well as they could.
Mm,
I do think that's also perhaps something for some leaders to reflect on, that they think that people are inherently bad or untrustworthy.
yeah.
I would love to see people check those assumptions a little bit. What happens if you trust people by default?
Yeah. Well, like I'll even for our listeners, I'll even give you an assignment. I'm making this up in the moment, but I actually think it would work. So, if you're a people leader of some kind, I want you to imagine somebody who is on your team, who is maybe you're not your best or favorite performer. Maybe they're like a middle of the road performer. Maybe there's somebody maybe they need a little help. I want you to actually put that person in your mind and find all the things that you can appreciate about them. Think about the things that they do well, that they excel at. Think about their aspirations, what they want to achieve, what they want to do. Do you even know? Right? Because you might need to know more about this person to understand how to motivate them. But find for yourself what there is to appreciate about this person. And then look for examples out in the wild. Like as they're performing their job, notice those moments when they do something that's like, oh, that was cool. And in that moment, let them know. Don't save it all up. Let them know in that moment.
It's a good assignment.
So how's that for an assignment? Yeah?
Yeah, it's a good one. This has been a fun conversation, Chuck. I think you're right. There's always more we can do when it comes to corporate BS. And here on incentives.
More is coming.
More is coming.
Yeah, we'll do other episodes on corporate BS. But yeah. All right, everybody. So as we always say, stay safe.
Stay kind.
And stay human.